Inferno Jackson Podcast.
How everybody doing today, man? Thankful that y'all tuning in to my show. I really appreciate everybody that subscribe to my channel and value my content. You know, I have been looking for that image that's on the thumbnail for the last 5 minutes, trying to create a thumbnail, because that picture that's on that thumbnail is what resonated with me the most. Like, when I seen that picture, it was devastating to see that whole section of the Palisades, California, Malibu, like a place that I'm familiar with, like burning to the ground like that. You know, when me and my wife got married, our honeymoon was in Maui. The year before Maui had the fires and the wind, and I experienced that wind. It was something different because we had a dinner cruise, and the wind was blowing so hard on the dinner cruise that I was like, golly, it felt like the boat about to flip over. And the year after that, Maui burnt to the ground. It's a place that I'll never forget. Lahaina, the hotel and everything that we stayed at, burnt to the ground. And I'll never forget that experience. I'll never forget that place. It's just, I'll never forget the nice people that I met also. And then the next year, the following year, we went to Los Angeles to experience LA, because it's a dream of mine to want to move out there. It's a dream of mine to want to go to the Olympics out there in 2028. That's going to be an interesting conversation of how they're going to rebuild. And it's rumors that they're trying to make it a smart city. They're removing people. And my interest in this topic is because if this can be done in LA, not saying, speaking from a conspiracy standpoint, but I don't think people truly know how those fires started. They've arrested some man that was homeless or whatever, and they pinning him on him, saying that he might get a life sentence. A lot of people are having a lot of conspiracy conversations saying that this happened, that happened, this happened, and that happened. But my interest is the people, and knowing that something like that can happen anywhere in the world. Not just a fire, but a catastrophe. A catastrophe. That's why I named this episode Chaos in America, because beyond the fire, it's more chaos happening in this country. And in California, I want to say it's a beautiful place. One of the most beautiful locations and beautiful cities in the world. And I've traveled a lot and experienced a lot. And I can say the Los Angeles, the Malibu area, the Santa Monica area, going up north from LA on that beach and all of that, San Diego, Lahaina and all of that, La Jolla. And it's just a beautiful state. And to see what's going on there, like with the crime and the gang activity, the fires, the Hollywood foolishness that they talking about, the sacrifices and all the sexual allegations and things that's going on. It's just crazy that leadership allowed that to happen. Now, I want to talk about leadership for a minute and my perception of the leadership in California, because I think that this could have been, I don't know if it could have been prevented, but I think that this could have been contained. It could have been a different outcome if people would have been more progressive, more aggressive instead of reactive. You know what I'm saying? Reacting after the situation happened instead of progressing before the situation happened. So I want to give a little take about something that I was aware of during New Year's. So me and my lady, we were sitting in the house watching New Year's in Dubai, New Year's in China, New Year's in America and stuff. And I remember it was a time when it was promoted. Now that we can see the whole world because of the internet, we are aware that we've been told a lie. When we look around the world, I was looking at how they was celebrating New Year's in China and Dubai, and it looked more futuristic. It looked more like they are over there not dealing with certain issues that we dealing with. You know, in Dubai, they was having the drone thing and dragons and all of that old type of stuff, and it looked like they was just balling out there. So then when the ball dropped in America, that 1980s ball drop, looked like it been there since the 70s in Manhattan. It just looked like, are we behind in technology and a lot of things? And are we not as progressive? What are our main concerns? So when I started thinking about that, I started thinking why situations is happening. and understanding that America is an experiment. We got people arguing over racial stuff, sex stuff, feminist stuff, all type of things, and we're not concerned about the bottom line. The main thing is us and continuously moving forward, the people of the country. And I started looking around at content and folks speaking on the California fires. And one thing that really caught my attention was this firefighter lady named Karen Bass. And she had some, no, not Karen Bass, but Karen Bass is the mayor, not Karen Bass. This lady's name is Chris Larson. She's a firefighter, but we're going to talk about Karen Bass also. But Chris Larson is a firefighter, and she had this to say. I might have to play this clip multiple times, though, because this is interesting.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or, you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire. You want to...
Now, I'm going to play that again, but I want to address the first part. I want people that's qualified. You know, I don't care what you look like. I'm not scared of other human beings, man. We have to be in this country together. We might as well flourish together. All of that separation stuff is foolishness at the end of the day. You know, I see that us in the black culture right now are identifying as FBA, foundational black Americans, especially the ones that was foundationally from America. But at the end of the day, we can't be scared of each other. We can't create separation in the household between male and female, between race, between classism, between sex. All of that is foolishness, man. You know, I want you to be qualified. Me personally, if you got the job in any job, if you ain't qualified for the job, I don't care about your sex or whatever America did in the past to hinder people. It's about right now. Now we got to get things in order. But I'm going to play that clip one more time because at the end, that was really interesting what Chris Larson said.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or, you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire. You want to...
Her response was, you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Her response to that was that he got himself in the wrong place if I got to carry him out of a fire. The lack of empathy for men is crazy. Like, you're supposed to be qualified to do the job. No matter if it's a man in there, it's a dog in there. You got to go in that fire. The man been doing it for decades, years, no matter the race or whatever. The man been doing it. So that automatically disqualify you for the job. Even though that person, Chris Larson, has been a firefighter for 20 something years or whatever. But to even say that is foolishness. That's just my opinion. To even say that is foolishness. If the man in there, he in the wrong place right now. Why am I responsible for getting him out? That's what diversity, equity, and inclusion has done to this country. A lot of people might say, Trail, why are you against that? Don't you want to be included? Don't you want equity? Don't you want to see diversity? I want you to be qualified, so we won't be misplacing people that is qualified. Do y'all understand what I'm trying to say? What are y'all thoughts about that? Leave me something in the comment section and help me understand that process and that thought process from Chris Larson. And what do y'all think about the leadership in California? And we about to move on in the conversation. You know, I had some notes I took, and it tripped me out of also something really tripped me out about the California wildfires. You know, the situation with the water there. When we was there, I seen signs and billboards saying that if you use more than your monthly amount of water that you're supposed to use, you will be fined if you use more water than you should. And you know, everything starts out there. Will that progressively come over this way eventually? Are we really running low on water like that? Because that's interesting to find somebody, and people go beyond their limit and they have to pay extra amount of money to use what God gave us. Have we abused what God gave us? That's an interesting take, man. Now, I'm about to read an article to y'all from NPR.org about incarcerated people fighting fires along with the fire department. So more than 900 incarcerated people are among the more than 7,500 personnel helping fight this historic and destructive Southern California wildfires. The 5 raging wildfires have destroyed homes, businesses, and landmarks throughout Los Angeles. As of today, 939 fire camp firefighters have been working around the clock cutting fire lines and removing fuel from behind structures to slow fire spreads, including 110 support staff. California's Department of Correction and Rehabilitation said in a statement to NPR on Friday, "This is not a new practice. California has relied on incarcerated firefighters since 1915, and prison labor has been used to respond to emergencies and disasters nationwide for centuries," said Bianca Tylick, executive director of Worth Rises, a criminal justice advocacy organization. To those like Tylick opposed to the continued use of inmates as firefighters, the system is seen as exploitative. California's Department of Correction says individuals who are part of this program are there voluntarily and are paid between $5 to $10 a day, with additional pay providing during emergencies and in other circumstances. The controversial practice also fills critical personnel gaps, especially as California faces a future with longer and more destructive fire seasons due to climate change. During the first fuel day of wildfires, LA area crews were battling upwards of 5 large blazes at the same time, which stretched the county's emergency response resources and staff. Anthony Monroe, LA County Fire Chief, said Wednesday, "Do they completely choose what they do?" California is one of more than a dozen states that operates conservation camps, commonly known as fire camps, for incarcerated people to train to fight fires in response to other disasters. The program was first established in 1915, but expanded during World War II after forestry staff left to fight in the war. In the interim, incarcerated people were tapped as replacements and 41 camps were established. There are now 35 such camps in California, all of which minimum security facilities. These firefighting crews are made up of incarcerated volunteers deemed physically and mentally fit who have exhibited good behavior and follow the rules according to CDCR. They must also have 8 years or less remaining on their sentence. When they are not fighting fires, they also respond to floods and other disasters and emergencies. Otherwise, these crews do community service work in areas close to their camp, according to the state's correction department. Wow. This is a long article, and I'm just going to read this last piece to y'all that really caught my interest, because I read this whole article today and it just tripped me out that the ongoing Southern California wildfires really illustrates why that effort was so important, she said, as hundreds of incarcerated people take to the front line of these wildfires to defend the personhood of property of people around the Los Angeles area in California. I hope that Californians can start to realize their value. So what was interesting about that to me is that these people, like America's structure, the way the country is structured, is like it needs to be, revisited. Because instead of people being in prison or whatever, people need help. Like, people need a chance to be rehabilitated. Prison ain't a place for rehabilitating individuals. It's a place to actually harden you. And it's never going to change because there's people profiting off of it. But what's crazy to me is that, these people can do this while they're in prison. But if they have felonies on their record when they get out, they can't obtain a job for what they was doing in prison. I don't know how the structure of America is going to be fixed, but leadership has to be examined in this country because it's a lot going on to the point to where people are just doing things to obtain finances and to fatten their pockets and make sure that their family is good or whatever. And the people that live here, that work here, that is trying to come here to better their lives are just left to the back burner. Now, before I get into what the mayor had to say, I want to play this clip of this young man that I found on Twitter that had something really interesting to say. Let's go.
3 days ago, I had to evacuate my home in California due to the fires. Now, fortunately, I have friends who I was able to stay with. But many people don't have that good fortune, and now many people are homeless, and some have died. This disaster was caused by multiple variables, and people have different opinions on which one should be weighted the most. Some have identified arson, some have pointed to climate change. But regardless of the cause, hopefully we can all agree that we have a great degree of control over the response. And the response has been well below what we actually deserve. And part of the reason why is because we have inverted our priorities and are focusing on things like diversity, equity, and inclusion instead of efficacy. And as a result of focusing on DEI, people have died. And in this video, I'm going to explain why. Last year, the LA Fire Department had its budget slashed by $17.6 million. In response to that, on December 4th, the head of the LA Fire Department, Kristen Crowley, sent a letter to Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, saying that they are not prepared for a variety of different disasters, including wildfires. Now, $17.6 million constitutes about 2% of LAFD's budget. But it's not about just the budget cuts. It's also about how they're spending their existing budget, because a significant amount, at least $1 to $2 million, was spent on diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. In recent years, critics have complained that LAFD is too white, too male, and has too much nepotism. Now, the nepotism is a fair claim, because if you're choosing people based on who they know, you're not necessarily picking the best people. And the desire to make LAFD's visual representation more representative of the racial and gender distribution in LA is understandable. But when we make diversity even a secondary goal when efficacy is the primary goal, then focusing on the secondary goal at all can get in the way of the primary. Now, this has been going on for a while. When the previous mayor, Eric Garcetti, entered office in 2013, he set a goal of raising the number of women in LAFD from 2.9% to up to 5% by 2020. As of now, the percentage is 3.5%. Now, the current head of the LAFD is Kristen Crowley, and here's what she had to say about her diversity goals.
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? I say, I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Now, you might not think this is a big deal. After all, who's going to get upset about wanting more diversity? But in practice, when you have scarce resources and you have a secondary priority, that secondary priority can get in the way of the first, especially in an environment where there's scarce resources and your department has lost $17.6 million in budget and needs to make sure that every dollar is allocated to the most important needs. You might even think that, okay, we can have diversity be first and merit be a tiebreaker, but that's not actually what's happening in practice. 3 of the top women at LAFD are all lesbians, and given the minority percentage of lesbians in the overall population in LA, the chances of that happening by chance and purely on merit are 1 in 64,000, or near zero. Meanwhile, the head of equity made almost $400,000 in base pay when her job is primarily to focus on diversity when they don't have enough money to even effectively do their job. On top of that, the head of equity, Christine Larson, makes more than the second in command, John O'Brien, despite the fact that he outranks her.
Hey, did y'all notice how Buddy's voice was changing, like, in parts? He might have clipped it up and edited and put it in pieces, but his voice was changing like, I don't know, like a demon or something, like some sort of monster or something, though. But salute to the young brother for his take, and I took some things from that was really important. You know, it was insurance companies and things like State Farm leaving before they had an expectancy that something was going to happen. And I feel for people in Florida right now, and also because that flood insurance is something ridiculous. But insurance in general is just crazy. It's kind of crazy, ain't it? That those companies will leave. It's just a bad business practice. Why would I stay here when I'm going to end up losing more money than I'm making? I got to go. So what what the buddy said at the beginning of the conversation that he was having was the response. You know, America can dump billions in wars in other countries and hindering people. And if you look at a lot of these individuals making these posts about what happened in California, what happened to their home, you see a lot of folks talking about Palestine and y'all funding the wars and stuff in Ukraine and Israel, giving them money and giving them bombs and stuff, and folks losing their life. Y'all losing a home. You know, what's more important, a life or a home? And now the people in your country are complaining about y'all not acting fast enough. Y'all ain't reacting fast enough. Well, that's what's going to happen when the president is almost 100 years old. The leader of the country is almost 100 years old. It's just a crazy situation that I think a lot of people may not be taken serious enough, because it could be more catastrophes. And we're going to talk about things that happened in other places. I know y'all seen the buildings burning down in Brooklyn also. Like it was built, big, massive buildings burning down in Brooklyn also. The last thing I want to address that I played about that clip is that I don't know why they making making the firefighter, like the LAFD, more diverse than being concerned about the main thing, protecting the people. I don't care who is a firefighter if they're qualified. You could have did 100 years in prison, even though you might not live to be 100. But you could have did 100 years in prison. They letting you do it if you in prison and you only got 8 years left. Why not let them people transition into having a productive life once they get out of prison? You know what I'm saying? It's just weird, man. I think that's weird, to be honest, to not want to see people be productive, to hold people and hinder people from being productive, and people that's qualified. Now, I see a lot of people, the Democratic side, they're going to say that, why don't you, what's wrong with diversity, equity, and inclusion when your people been hindered, this and that and that. And the Republican side is saying, y'all ain't focused on the main thing. Y'all ain't get ready to allow the people that is qualified to be in the positions that they supposed to be in. But this is just a weird conversation, and it's just weird in general, because I come up in the early 90s, the late 80s, man, when if you weren't qualified to do something, you figured it out. You went to school, you learned it on your own, you just figured it out. It wasn't, no, we just going to put you in position because you are who you are. You know, that's kind of like a feminine, you know what I mean, way of thinking. I'm a woman, I should be able to get money. I'm going to talk about that too, not on this episode, but I got an episode that I'm pulling up about some comments that girl from Joe Budden podcast, what's her name? I don't forgot her name. She made some statements about women should receive reparations from marriage. And it was just Melissa Ford, that's her name. And it was just crazy that she made those statements, but that's going to be for another episode. But I'm getting ready to play this clip from the mayor of Los Angeles, and we're going to further the discussion. Let's go.
Bobby Castro over here from Good Day LA, Fox 11. Another issue, another concern about resources, and in particular staffing as well. And we heard from firefighters even on the front lines expressing frustrations about, obviously it's a challenge right now. They're bringing in firefighters from all across the Western region. But can you address the criticism now over the budget issue and the slashing, $17 million slashing?
I think if you go back and look at the reductions that were made, there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation that we were dealing with over the last couple of days. And then there was a little bit of confusion because money was allocated to be distributed later on, which was actually going to support salaries and other parts of the fire department that were distributed a little later. So I think it's most important to understand that we were in tough budgetary times. Everybody knew that, but that the impact of our budget really did not impact what we've been going through over the last few days. Again, back to the unprecedented windstorm, wind at such ferocity that we haven't seen in years, is the context in which we were dealing with it. Thank you.
So she's saying the budget cuts didn't have absolutely nothing to do with it. The wind was what was more important. Now, why don't we have like drones that can pour the water over the fire? Why don't we have like some sort of technology? I in Dubai, like I talked about Dubai on New Year's Day, but I gotta find this text I sent my homeboy. You know, cloud seeding. You know, they can make it rain. Have y'all researched what cloud seeding is? They can force it to rain. The government can. They can cloud seed and make it rain. Force raining in Dubai. Why couldn't we do that when the fire started? Just immediately just start forcing rain or start having drones or whatever. Why we ain't up on our technology or whatever? And then she basically just made an excuse talking about the $17 million didn't have an impact. That's crazy to me. But I wanna take a break in the podcast. I'm gonna play some of my music and I'm gonna cue up the rest of the conversation because I got some things I want to talk about oligarchy that Bernie Sanders had to say. I want to talk about the snowstorm in Atlanta, and then I want to talk about the new amount of yearly finances that an individual has to have in America to thrive. Let's get into some music though, man, and take a little break, and I'll be back to chop it up with y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to my show. Let's go.
If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change nothing. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change nothing. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change nothing. I had to get me something. I came up from nothing. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change nothing. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change nothing. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change nothing. I had to get me something. I came up from nothing. I had to change my mental, upgrade my credentials. How a nigga came up, it wasn't accidental. Now monumental, more like legendary. A player never worry, bumping pop, Hail Mary, trapped off a Blackberry. Ain't contrary to your belief, I made it at them streets, don't acknowledge beef. Kept the play discreet, we too unique. On the winning streak, spent a couple racks at the boutique. I wouldn't change nothing, I'm always me. Never took a plea, nigga, you a flea. I'm your OG's OG, he called me for inspiration. Need a consultation, just make the payment for the conversation. If it's elevation or innovation, my expectation ain't limitation. You need a demonstration, my track record and reputation should be admiration. That's confirmation, I'm decoration for the trenches, off the benches, jump the fences, no penny pinching, we off the hinges. Hit the shot, my team winning, the series clinching, you niggas finished. Never timid, I've been a menace, no old dog and every day is printed. Haters living cause my life changed, should be happy but you a real lame.
Back to it. So I was watching high level conversations with the brother 19 Keys, the boy that's from Oakland or whatever, and he was talking about the price of living in America in 2025 and what it takes for a single individual to survive. Not a married couple, not a couple, not a household with a multitude of individuals, but for what it takes for one individual to thrive. And it kind of blew my mind because I knew like 15, 20 years ago, I remember hearing people say, man, I just need a job to make $50,000 a year. I need $50,000, $60,000 a year. I'll be straight, man. I'll be straight. But boy, have times changed. You know, when y'all go to the grocery store and you spending a bankroll on food, goods, soap, gas, washing your car, you know what I'm saying? It just the necessities. The necessities cost money now, man. I just spent $5 on an organic tomato today. I was tripping off of that. A seeded tomato, because I could have got one that was seedless and it was fake, and you know it would have been hard to digest or whatever though. But I'm about to put this image up and talk to y'all about it because it's intriguing to me. So I'm located in North Carolina. They say for a single individual to thrive, it's $90K a year. Now look at the lowest area, West Virginia. West Virginia, they say it takes $79K to thrive. That's the lowest area in the nation. So on the screen, if you see Massachusetts, it say $116,000 to thrive. That's ridiculous, dog. Texas, $87,000 to thrive. Florida, $93,000 to thrive. California, $114,000 to thrive, and that might go up. And $114,000 is kind of low for Cali. You might not be in one of the metropolitan cities. You might be on the outskirts. Hawaii, $114,000 to thrive. Washington State, $106,000 to thrive. I wonder what it is in Maryland. West Virginia, $100,000 to thrive. Maryland, $103,000 to thrive. I seen that. Delaware, $94,000 to thrive. My home state, Tennessee, $86,000. Arkansas, $79,000 in Arkansas. That's just ridiculous, man. To thrive, that's really ridiculous to me. And the reason I wanted to talk about the class and the finances, the yearly finances that you need, is because it's not a race war. You know, we get caught up in black, white, Hispanic, Latin, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, and all of that old type of foolishness, and the Israelites and the Jewish people and these people and the Africans and all of this. In America, man, they don't even really care about race no more. It's a financial war. It's a class war. And you got to get yourself stable and got to get ahead of the ball game. Real talk, man. You got to get ahead of the ball game. Now, I want to switch the conversation up because as the fires was going over there on the West Coast, it's snowing over here on the East Coast. You know, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. It only lasts a day, though. But that black ice was something serious. If you was outside yesterday, last night, or even tonight, you know, that black ice was serious, man. You caught me sliding, holding on to poles and everything, trying to get in and out the car, trying to get in the house. My driveway was all ice. I woke up this morning, my car was down a few notches, like it slid down. So, not to say that what was going on was bad where I was at. It was dangerous, but didn't nobody die, didn't nobody lose their home, it didn't burn down. It's nothing in comparison to what's going on in California, but it still was bad. Now, what's crazy about that, though, is that it doesn't snow that much around in this area and in the southeastern area. So people ain't prepared like they're supposed to be. People don't have their snow tires. Flights. You know, the most busiest and the biggest airport in the world is in Atlanta, Georgia. So I was looking at delays and stuff for flights. It was over 3,000 delays last night. 3,000 flights delayed. I said, damn. I couldn't be in that airport right now, and I know it's packed and people are disgruntled. So I just wanted to play this clip for y'all because it's still going on right now. But it's not 3,000 delays anymore. It's something totally different. But I just want to play the clip for the experience that what people had in Atlanta today, last night and today.
We were on the tarmac for about 2 hours. They told us that they're trying to de-ice, and then they went back to the gate, and then they said the flight is canceled. So we're trying to rebook.
So far, Atlanta-based Delta Airlines says it's scrubbed around 800 of its flights since Friday as a result of this winter storm, and the company says more adjustments to its flight schedule are possible throughout this weekend. Now, we've spent all day yesterday speaking with people trying to make it to their destinations. That included one woman. She was headed to Detroit. She says she was not scared by the sight of snow.
We could either wait or get on the road and make some progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen the road?
Well, we're from Michigan, so to us it's like, what?
Yeah, she said that's light work. All right, so we've checked FlightAware, and there are already more than 300 cancellations for flights in and out of the airport. Airport officials say anyone planning to fly out of Hartsfield-Jackson this weekend should keep a close eye on their airline's social channels, emails, apps for any updates that they may send out. Meanwhile, one flight that tried to leave Atlanta yesterday was forced to abort its takeoff. 4 passengers on board that Delta flight that was headed to Minneapolis, they were injured after being forced to evacuate. We're told that the aborted takeoff was due to an engine issue. Passengers evacuated that plane using emergency slides. They were taken to a nearby concourse. One of the injured passengers was taken to a local hospital for treatment. We're working to learn how that passenger is doing this morning.
You know, that's crazy. Like, I know some people from Detroit, and I met a few people from Detroit and Tennessee, and I'll never forget this incident. You know, this person from Detroit was talking about y'all ain't going nowhere or nothing. The snow ain't bad here in Tennessee. It's just a couple of inches or whatever. But I'm gonna tell you the difference between the southeast and up north. You know, people may not take this into consideration, and they may think this is something that's small or whatever until they experience it. An inch of snow and a little bit of ice in the southeastern part is way more dangerous than 3 to 4 to 5 inches of snow in Detroit. Y'all driving on flat land. It's completely flat. You got to take this into consideration, man. We're in the Appalachian Mountains. It's turns, hills, curves, and all of that. You can't be going 50 and 60 around them turns, hills, and curves with 1 inch of snow. You might fly off the mountain. And that person I'm talking about, man, rest in peace. But they lost their life, man. And it was sad. They lost their life, like, minimizing the situation. Talking about where they from. They from Detroit. And it's just a sad thing. I don't want nobody to think because of where you located or where you from, you can minimize the impact of something somewhere else. And that goes along with these fires, that goes along with this snow, that goes along with, you know what I mean, people from other countries that's on the internet right now looking at what America is going through. And we have seen what y'all have went through also. I don't want to minimize the impact of people losing their lives through war or none of that. Just don't minimize the impact and react and act accordingly. Let me get into this oligarchy thing that Bernie Sanders was talking about that I found interesting. And oligarchy is a small group of people having control over a country, organization, or a government or an institution. A small group of people. Let's get it.
And let me be honest with you in saying that we are in an extraordinarily pivotal and volatile moment in American history. And things are moving very, very rapidly. The most important point that I want to stress today is how fast our country is evolving into an oligarchic society and into two very different Americas. On one hand, we have an America that consists of less than 1,000 billionaires, not a whole lot of people in a nation of 340 million, who have an unprecedented amount of wealth and power and have never, ever had it so good. That's one America. The other America, where the vast majority of our people live, consists of tens of millions of families who are struggling to put food on the table, pay their bills, and worry that their kids will have a lower standard of living than they do. In the first America, the uber wealthy buy $500 million yachts, $270 million mansions. They have private islands all to themselves. They got fleets of jets to take them all over the world. And occasionally they take cool trips on rocket ships that blast off to the edge of outer space. A lot of fun. They also receive the best health care money can buy, and they send their kids to the very best private schools and colleges in the world. In this America, the three wealthiest men, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg, own more wealth than the bottom half of our society.
Now, I'm going to play the last clip and I'm going to get up off of her. But, you know, when Bernie Sanders was running for president, I liked a lot of the things that he was saying, to be honest with you. It's just that I knew he wasn't going to win because he wasn't taking the funding. It's something that Judge Joe Brown mentioned to me called followthemoney.org when I did a podcast with him. Followthemoney.org. And if you look at a lot of these politicians and stuff and see where their money is coming from, you know what agenda that they align with. You know what they have to do because where they receiving the funding from. Followthemoney.org. I'm going to say it again. Go check that out because that was serious to me when I looked him up, when he told me about that. And I knew he wasn't going to win the mayor of Memphis because he didn't have no funding from nobody. And he didn't have to. I like when you don't have no funding because you don't have to abide by the rules of certain individuals and certain things that they align with and they want done. But I knew Bernie wasn't going to win, but he was saying some good things. But before I play this last clip, I want to give my take on this whole thing about chaos in America and what Bernie Sanders is saying. You know, I played this last because I feel like it wraps up everything that we was just talking about with the fires and the foolishness and the diversity, equity, and inclusion and all of that old type of stuff. I feel like, America is a business. It stand on capitalism. And people want to come over here. But until they get over here, they don't realize what it really is. They see the glitz and the glamour from social media from certain individuals, but it's not, the wealth is not spreaded like it needs to be. It's not spread around enough. Just me. This is just my take and my perception. Just to me, the wealth is not spread out enough, and I think that needs to change. And the only way it's going to change is if the people can unify. Right now, I think the government is 10, 15 steps ahead of the people. And their intentions is to get artificial intelligence and robots and stuff to do all the work so the rich people can thrive, because they don't care about the millions of people. We're going to have to look beyond sex, race, and class if we want to thrive and end the chaos. Because the people who lost those homes and stuff, the leadership that they voted for made them lose the $1 million homes. Some of them people was billionaires and lost it off of the leadership that they got elected. Instead of wanting to lead themselves and unify themselves, they was content with their finances and their situation, their current situation, and they lost it all. We're going to have to start looking out for the best interests of everybody, man. Not just a collective few, but for everybody. Thank y'all for tuning in to my show, man. I'm going to play the end of this clip and I'm gone, man. Peace, love, plenty, abundance. Make sure you go get you some money.
And their wealth is skyrocketing. Musk alone is now worth over $450 billion. And combined, these three men are now worth almost $1 trillion. In the other America, millions of Americans are struggling just to provide for the basic necessities of life. In this America, over 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. Millions work for starvation wages. 85 million are uninsured or underinsured. And over 60,000 die each year because they can't afford to go to a doctor on time. In other words, we are living in a nation today where a handful of billionaires have more money than they could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, while at the same time, millions are living in desperation, fear, and are struggling to survive.